Chapter 21. What a bunch of incompetent knuckleheads. How the hell could they allow her to leave? The excuse she gave wasn't enough to stop me from slamming them for her disappearance. Deep down, I just knew she was in trouble. Worst case scenario, she bumps into Reese. And at a time like this, the bastard wouldn't hold back from ripping her apart. Fucking hell, I growled, the assembly line of betas I gathered in the study room looking away from me shamefully. I knocked the shelves of books and made an entire scene before Gideon casually walked in. Get the hell out of my sight, all of you, I barked at them through my panting breath, my rage scaring them off like little pups. I need you to get it together, he said calmly, as if unbothered by the news. Oh yeah? Tell me, hotshot, how do you expect me to do that when my mate is missing? She isn't your mate, he said in a matter-of-fact tone. I snickered. Really? That tribute to the wolf god says differently. Sorry, pal. She isn't pissing on just one part of the woods anymore. He cocked his eyebrow at me. Werewolf reference. She has a tracker. I started receiving the signal a few seconds ago. I suggest we get moving now. It's already fading. Is that normal? No, actually, it isn't. Then come on, I said, snatching my leather jacket from the couch and rushing out. We have no time to lose. We'll need backup, he said, stopping me short. I pivoted to him, the expression on my face giving him an answer. No, we deal with this ourselves. If this is about your pride, tuck it and save us the trouble, he scolded me, his gait at me strong. We are talking about Thea's life here. This isn't the time to spare your betas. How about you stop thinking with your emotions for a minute and play this strategically? If I send the little betas I have left into the pit, then we are fucking screwed. Think investment. We need them alive. Reese probably has Thea. Let's not give him her army too, I said to him sternly. Gideon gave me the silent, intense stare down before he turned toward the exit. I released my breath, kicking myself in the nuts for being afraid of him. My theory still stands. The giant wasn't human. And before I found myself on the losing end of a fight, I'd rather not get on his bad side. We traveled to his location by car. The previous owner of this abode left a sexy set of wheels in his garage. Too bad I didn't have time to admire the sexy style of this black Bugatti Veyron. But I did get to enjoy its speed. This technological masterpiece was faster than a werewolf on steroids, and it got us to our destination quicker than I could bat a fucking eye. When I parked the car along the curb, we walked the rest of the way down into the park. Once it lost the trimmed edges and the friendly tones, we reached the woods. I'm catching her scent, I said, Gideon continuing to use his imaginary compass to guide us to Thea. I'm also catching something else, An alpha's sense of smell was better than a beta's, and 10 times stronger than an omega's. Something else lingered in the air, and it was keeping me on edge. I think Gideon was picking up on something too, his constant shifting making me anxious. His eyes scoped left and right, but he didn't break his pace. Not until we got to an area that was no different than where we'd been, besides the creek a few yards in front of us. The trail ends here, he said. Strange. Her scent is strongest around this patch of dead grass right here. But I don't see her anywhere. Don't call out for her. You'd reveal our location. No shit, genius, I scoffed, just as I sucked my breath in, prepared to call out for her like a desperate idiot. Let's keep moving. The more we walked around, the less confident I got in finding her. Her scent fluctuated, warm in some spots, cold in others. I was growing restless after 5 minutes, until Gideon stopped short by the creek. We are being followed, he said, and I suddenly found myself being blocked by the Sasquatch. The movement on that bastard Reese was unprecedented. Luckily for me, Gideon was just as fast-footed. He grabbed Reese's wrist, his sharpened claws pointed at his face. With his free hand, Reese followed through, Gideon countering him by sweeping his arm away and yanking on it. I heard Reese's socket pop. The darkness in his eyes glowed, the prick summoning more power to resist Gideon. Shit! I slipped through my teeth. But before I could lend Thea's bodyguard a hand, Reese swept Gideon's legs, the giant stumbling back first on the ground. I see the cowardly mouse made an upgrade, Reese mocked, as he had Gideon pinned. I am no beta, Gideon retorted. Reese's body weight kept him on the ground, his resistance on him straining. I saw beads of sweat build up on Gideon's forehead while he kept Reese's hands at bay. No, but you sure do fight like one, Reese grumbled, then elongated his claws hanging over Gideon's neck. I rushed over to give him a firm kick to his side, so Gideon could have a fighting chance. But as soon as Reese turned my way, I knew I was fucked. "Heel pup, wait your turn," he snarled at me, and we locked eyes. However sparingly, the damage was already done. Reese brought me to my knees, my hand clenching onto my stomach in agony. Reese's special trait was broken, as he had the power to weaken anyone with just a stare. As long as he caught your gaze, he'd make you bleed, and the internal pain was nothing to mess around with. Once he had me down, I closed my eyes. He was limited when the link was gone. The bastard turned back to Gideon, and knowing him, he'd try his death stare again on him. Especially after I heard Gideon crack a few of his bones. The temptation to look nudged at me, but I didn't want to die here. I kept my eyes closed, and went off of smell and sound alone. There was a light scuffle, followed by Reese's baffled comment, "What? What are you?" That sound of him freaking out was reassuring. My guess, Gideon was immune to his superpowers. "Gouge his fucking eyes out," I barked at Gideon, with my knees to the ground and my fists tightening up. Even though his regeneration was quick, it'd buy us enough time to beat Thea's location out of him. "Where is Thea?" Gideon growled at Reese. I heard a thud, followed by a series of ground-shaking punches, and then a battle cry that forced my eyes wide open. Reese was transforming into a mid-range form, and he was strong enough to push Gideon back. Gideon flew, Reese's strength launching him into a row of trees. His body broke through them all, and the faithful watchdog was down for the count. With Reese's new plaything out of the picture, he turned to me. For the first time, I didn't shirk back. I squared my shoulders and closed my eyes, giving myself a fighting chance. "This is for Paxton, you son of a bitch." Off of scent alone, I tracked him down. The small disadvantage of having my eyes closed would have normally been manageable, but against a foe like Reese, it could be downright detrimental. Either way, I gave him my all, and flung a square punch at him. One, just one. All I needed was to land one hit on him, and I could go full berserk on his cannibal ass. I was pent up on vengeance. This asshole took my best friend, and now he took my mate away from me. He needed to be punished, and it was just that I'd be the one to do him in. Too bad someone had other plans for us. A shot flicked Reese's right ear just as he shifted his body and he dismantled. I'd never seen the fucker vanish so fast in my life. Honestly, his fear struck a chord through me too. We escaped now and asked questions later. From the sound of it, we were being hunted. He fled, and I followed him like stink on a garbage lid. There was no path that he took that I didn't. Granted, the prick was faster than me, I held my own. Until we reached an area in the stretch of the woods that seemed uncharted. Reese stopped to point his nose in the air, and I stared at his right ear that continued to sizzle and bleed. "What? Slow region?" I taunted. "Idiot! This hunter is using a special bullet." He cupped his ear, and then his head jumped, his body pivoting behind him where we both saw Gideon just standing there. "Okay, seriously, what the fuck are you?" I insisted. "So I take it you don't have Thea," he said, addressing Reese. "If I did, would I be in a place like this?" Reese answered back bitterly. "I strongly believe so. Your desire to kill the Highlander Alpha comes in many forms. Using her to lure him here is one of them. I appreciate the credit, but I am here for the same reason you are. How about you enlighten me then? Her mating scent is currently untraceable. How do you know to find her here?" "It's because you lost her, didn't you?" I said, shooting the blame on him. "You better pray to your fang god that the hunter didn't get to her, or I swear I'll—" "Please don't bother with your feeble threats. Save it, you ascot-wearing freak." "I'm waiting," Gideon pressed on, and Reese sighed. He raised his broken hand at eye level, and the both of us watched as the bones in his fingers fell back into place. I used her co-worker to pull her out from hiding. Tonight, she was more than eager to go out. After she noticed I had bad intentions, she ran, and my betas and I chased her. "Your betas?" I said, sharpening my vengeful eyes at him. "I can't believe you were actually trying to kill her." "They were instructed to take her in, alive." "I've heard enough! I say we wrap this up, Gideon," I growled. "Let's decapitate this sorry wolf-eating fucker for good." "Better idea, how about we put our differences aside and search for Thea?" Gideon suggested, and then turned his glare back to Reese. "After which, I won't hesitate to ground you 6 feet under." Reese smirked. "All right, deal. But not here. We need to find a safe location to re-strategize." "Re-strategize?" I grumbled. "Have you lost it? We just confirmed that there's a hunter in the area. If we leave now, we are practically handing Thea to the regime. Her scent lingers, yet we cannot find her. Has it ever occurred to you that this might be a trap? The regime, They are reputable for a good reason. I'm going to go on a limb and say that you never had the unfortunate pleasure of crossing paths with them. Not personally. Once they find a wolf trail, they stick to it and use it to draw more of our kind out. It's how the Onyx wolves ultimately met their downfall. I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to give up years of work for some low-breed hybrid bitch, am I right? I cut him off, finishing his line for him. Because that's all Thea is to you. You selfish piece of shit. He turned to me with a hot glare. She's my fated mate, and you made it damn clear that you rejected her. At least I gave her a home. Stealing what's not yours. I can see why you thought it fair to go after her like that. I've taken out more of your men than you can count. It's only just that you return the favor. Because that's what this is all about, right? Getting even? Unfortunately for you, the scar doesn't run so deep for someone I care little about. You heartless son of a— Hey, calm down, Gideon said, stepping in between us as I charged my way to the dirtbag. He is right. This smells like a trap. We need to regroup before they drop on us in high numbers.
Chapter 22. Thea. My face was so beaten down that I couldn't feel it anymore. It was numb and so swollen that the taste of my own blood down my lips brought me relief instead of dread. It meant that my half-wolf heart kept on healing me, despite all of the abuse my body had taken. My sister was relentless, carving me out like a buttered turkey. My body was sent into shock so many times that I'd lost count, the torment I endured of no fault but my own. I was the fool who fell for the bait. This hefty price was on my shoulders. The worst part of it was how my only line of defense was shot. Here I was blocked from using my telekinetic powers. Witchcraft from my other half, no doubt. She was talented and, if I had to guess, could stand in league with Gladys. It was Friday morning according to the sunbeams between the slits of window blinds. In another hour more, my body would be all sewn up and ready for more slashes. The wolf design was a double-edged sword, however. It was keeping me alive. My evil twin was sure to keep the silver away from me on the off chance her new favorite pastime would kill me. Beyond the aches and pains of my deep gashes, my entire soul was sore from sitting on this chair for hours. I wasn't allowed to get up, even though my prison guards were stronger than me. Honestly, I didn't know what they were afraid of. It wasn't like I could escape. When pinned against a witch and a seasoned hunter, a hybrid wolf would lose every time. Even though they were scared of me running loose, they left me alone in this room at intervals, giving me an ample amount of time with my thoughts. A second form of torture, really. Being alone with my mind wasn't something I could handle right now, especially after being told that my mother was no other than Gladys herself. The transition shouldn't have been this difficult for me to grasp, seeing as I saw her as a mother already. But the sheer fact that she'd lied to me all of those years, for what? Why couldn't she have just come out and said it? What harm would it have done? Deep down inside, I was struggling with it. A part of me wanted to hate her for lying to me all of my life, while the other part begged me to be reasonable. At least now, all of that overprotectiveness made absolute sense. She was taking care of me like her own, because I was her own, flesh and blood. Tears began to sting my eyes. Suddenly, I was washed with regret. We rarely had our bouts, but when we did, it was always because of me trying to rebel. I recalled how I told her to shake off her high horse, that she wasn't my mother. Stop pretending to be someone you're not. I'd yelled at her. The suffocation was so much to bear. That itch for freedom made me say terrible things. I was spoiled and selfish. The regret seeping through my bones left me in tremors, and all I wanted to do now was run back home and hug my feisty old witch. "Morning," a man said, his heavy biker boots echoing down the plank floor as he dragged a chair behind him toward me. I picked my head up and saw a tall man that left my mouth agape. The smell of cigarettes and whiskey lined my nose as I took in his bold features. He was tall, maybe an inch taller than Gideon. But unlike Gideon, he wasn't as bulky and muscular. What he lacked in loud muscle, he made up for in aura. I was getting dangerous vibes from him and knew immediately that this man was the hunter my sister was working with. "I take it that it's time for your turn?" I said sarcastically. "Where are your shiny toys?" "Do you want to see my shiny toys?" He snipped back smugly as he pulled up the chair he was dragging right in front of me. He stood it backwards and saddled up, his crossed arms resting over the top of the backrest. The daunting silence thereafter was making my skin crawl. Up close, I got to see his sinister smile at 4K resolution, the vertical wrinkles on his face framing his ginger goatee. I gotta say, I wasn't expecting you to live this long, he said in a deep, grisly voice. Those men who have been out there looking for you made a run for it. Men? My guess, they went out to get reinforcements. I figured I'd do them the honor of matching their efforts and wrangle me up some backup as well. He snickered. I didn't think I'd need it. That's some hubris you got there. You've never heard of me, have you? He scoffed. Then again, how could I expect you to? The Shifter Council had promised to all werewolves that they'd taken care of us years ago. You were in diapers at the time, so you wouldn't remember that special night. The night where your daddy killed my daddy, then turned me into a monster like him. I'm deeply sorry for your loss. You think yourself funny now, but after your boys come back, you will be. I'll do much worse to them. This sounds like a vendetta, so treat it like one. If you're going to kill me, hurry up and do it already, I cried, fearing for Gideon and Austin's life. No, I'm not going to kill you, not yet. We wait. I want to use you to get your werewolf friends out of hiding. You'll serve your purpose and be the cause of their inevitable downfall. And after I kill them, I'll take my sweet time ripping you apart for what your alpha father did. As we speak, the illusion spell is fading. It's only a matter of time before all hell breaks loose for those hounds. They got away from me once, they won't do it again. She told me peace was never an option with you criminal hunters. And now I'm beginning to see why. All of you are so blinded by hate. You'd rather bathe in blood than try living in harmony. Boy, you've sure been sheltered all of your life, haven't you? To be naive and gullible. There will never be peace between predator and prey. Werewolves were meant to kill. It's in their blood. It's in the genetic coding. What's happening now is an illusion of control. The Shifter Council allows packs to claim territories to minimize the bloodshed, when in reality, all they are really doing is putting up a mesh screen door and hoping no one's curious enough to poke at it. They don't really give two shits about these packs staying in line. All they care about is giving humanity a reason to believe that the werewolf population isn't growing. As long as you freaks don't stir the pot too much, nothing will be questioned. Of course, that idea would have been all swell and dandy if they gave a shit about regulating it. They've been careless, losing their touch with power, and allowed the more corrupt werewolves to kill uncapped, aka the Reaper Wolves. I regret I had a clean shot at putting the alpha down earlier, but I missed. My eyes jumped. Was Reese really out there looking for me? Now I wasn't so sure it had been Austin and Gideon he was talking about. The men he was referring to may have been Reese and his betas. But that didn't make any sense. Why hadn't Gideon picked up on my alarm last night before my sister broke the necklace? Why wasn't he out here looking for me? This chaos is spiraling out of control, and it's up to me and my boys to do something about it. I reckon we take every local pack out there to the dance, and make them wear their own blood as suits. Or my pack could repeat history, and my alpha could show you another love bite. He scoffed. You got some mouth on you, kid. For a hybrid, you're sure feeling high and mighty. I'm not alone. Really now? And what foolish pack leader decided to adopt your sorry excuse for a dogfucker? That's none of your damn business. He laughed. Suit yourself. It won't matter soon anyway. I take my father's business seriously, and I happen to be great at what I do. Efficiency gets the job done every time. Hunters are doing a perimeter sweep as we speak. I gave him a sarcastic glare, so I'll say a silent prayer for them. You know, that nasty bite your daddy gave me never went away. It left a nasty scar, one that wouldn't heal. He pulled his high collar back and tilted his head, revealing his torn neck. Gruesome was the first word that came to my head, my stomach turning at the sight of it. It was large, making me skeptical about him converting from a bite so severe. Honestly, he should have been dead. To me, this scar is a constant reminder of my mission on this forsaken, monster-infested world. With a bite mark this lethal, I should have been a goner. I still remember the light flickering in my eyes, the feeling of my dying breath burning down my lungs. As I lay there in my own pool of blood, with that alpha's hold still on me, all I could hear was my life pooling into his mouth. There's no word to describe the sensation. I'd been ripped apart, but I didn't feel pain. I felt regret. I'd let my family down, my friends, and more importantly, myself. The strength to survive motivated me to hang in there. even when my fate was already sealed. This flame inside me told me not to give up, and with all of my might, I let out a cry so loud it stunned every heart-eating beast on sight. A senior hunter swooped in and rescued me, taking Ol Miles out in the process. He called it in, cutting his losses. It was then I truly embraced my purpose in life. I was the janitor, and humanity needed a grade A cleanup crew. He got up, looking down his nose at me with a bitterness that had me terrified inside. I'd asked him where he was going, and his answer paralyzed me. To begin the genocide of the lycanthrope species. I'm gonna have me a jolly good time wiping you all off the face of the earth. We have a visual! We have a visual! The black comm unit along his hip radioed in, the sound of the man on the other end making my heart jump. It's showtime.
Chapter 23. Reese. Dawn of the Strike. I had to reserve my wrath for the assassin and his mutt for another time. Right now, I needed Thea, and working my betas in the plan was our best course of action. There was no element of surprise. They knew we were coming. The trap was set, and all of the pieces were slowly coming together. Already we made waves, my betas crossing paths with hunters along the perimeter. We were spread along the forest lines sparingly because we had to cover both high grounds and low grounds. On the trees, my men swooped in on hunters camouflaging among foliage. Along the field, their comrades shared the same fate. With their push, I was allowed coverage to zero in on the center, where I was now able to pick up not only Thea's natural werewolf scent, but her mating call as well. She's close. I leaped in the air, leaving my post. I went from jumping from tree to transforming mid-jump. My legs grew thick white fur, and my back elongated to compensate for my great wolf size. The transition took all but a few short seconds, and it was doable because of the clearance my betas had given me. Once my front legs slammed the dirt, my speed increased twofold. The wind sliced through my coat, my head bouncing along with my incredible stride. Closing in on the circle had its own challenges. The closer we were to Thea, the more reinforcements the regime hunters had. My sharp ears began hearing my men failing, gunshots popping in the air, tousling our efforts. Their cries propelled my feet. I looked up to see where the birds were fleeing, and it corresponded to the echo vibrating in my ears. The sound is coming from the north side, which meant I needed to charge the opposite way. In our plan to get Thea back, I was put on the front lines as defense. My men were my backup while I cleared a path for Gideon and Austin. Unfortunately for us, we had no way of knowing what'd be waiting for us in the finish line. I was hoping to meet the hunter who'd shot me a few hours ago. His execution would greatly weigh this battle in our favor. The swarm around me started to grow, my senses telling me that I had some company. I vanished behind a bush and reappeared behind a hunter hiding in another. The kill was so simple, I felt like I'd robbed the man of life. I dug my vicious jowls into his neck and heaved. Cords of blood dangled like tinsels on a Christmas tree. Savoring this kill was out of the question, the sound of twigs being snapped from behind me, making me move. The next hunter shared the same fate as the first, but as soon as I sunk my fangs into this one, I heard another gunshot. This one was close. At first, I didn't feel the pain running down my shoulder blade, not until the burning sensation chased the silver bullet. I fought to keep my stand as I ran for coverage so I could see who'd shot me. Up above, couching in the treetop. His sniper rifle was still locked on me, and he challenged me with another shot. Now, big fella, don't make it harder than it has to be, he said, his precision and speed too fast to be human. No, he was a werewolf himself, determined to kill his own kind. I growled, my gums lined with foam. His gunshot was doing a toll on my stamina, but I refused to go down this easily. If I closed the distance between us, I should be able to take him out. After I dodged his second bullet, I struck. He noticed I was gunning for him and dashed, but his speed was no match for mine. As soon as he leaped off of the treetop, I sprung right behind him. Luckily for the hunter, he had his ground covered, a litter of silver stars erupting from underneath my feet, stunting my stride. They pierced the pads of my feet. I had to slow down to shake them off, giving him enough time to tuck and cover. This hunter was clever, and I was having a hard time believing he was working alone. But with the blood of a werewolf pumping in his veins, I shouldn't be too surprised. Night, night, flea bag. Another shot, another attempt at my life. This time I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of impaling me. He was lethally close to lodging one in my head. However, the bullet grazed me instead, taking fragments of my temple along with it. My eye was struck, spots of blood flying in the air. He triggered a survival mode inside me that ignored all of the pain and the burning silver eating away inside me. I lunged at his direction with breakneck speed. He pulled his face away from his scope to flee, but in that fragment of a second, I caught his eyes. My perfect angle. I engraved his name in his tombstone, his body bucking forward in my command. "Ugh!" he cried, my mind twisting his stomach inside out. I continued approaching him for the kill, watching as he squirmed on the ground, trying to reach his fallen weapon. But as soon as I widened my mouth, I felt the air shift above me. "Die, you monster!" a female hunter cried with a long silver machete over her head, threatening to behead me. The blood on my snout must have masked her scent. I admit the bloodlust in me ignored all of the signs of her closing in on me. She was dangerously close, my footing torn as I tried to step-dodge her. Instead of slicing through my neck, she caught my upper arm, fortune in my favor. I could tell on her face that she didn't expect to miss my head. If she'd landed the blow, I'd been dead without a second thought. No regeneration would be able to pull my dismembered pieces together or grant me another melon. At close range, I made her pay for attacking me, slashing down her chest with a quick blow. Even though she didn't kill me, she left me gravely wounded. What's worse, she gave her commander a chance to flee. When I turned my head over to the man with the sniper rifle, he was already gone. That was my cue to press forward, no matter how drained I was. What should have taken me seconds to reach the center took me minutes. I was staggering, approaching a scene where Gideon, Austin, and a stranger were. Behind that stranger was Thea in some type of transparent cylinder made from hexagonal diamonds, guarded by this stranger. I squinted as I watched them from behind a tree, not revealing my position just yet. But as I studied this stranger, I came up to a daunting realization that this woman might be related to Thea. "You're one slippery fella, aren't ya?" the woman croaked, and she was just as battered up as I was. I noticed that Austin was down, hacking up blood on the ground, while Gideon eyed the she-devil with minor scratches on him. In the words of Austin himself, I had to ask myself, what was he? I gotta admit, I'm impressed. I ain't never met a man like you. Take it how you want it. That's a good thing. "Stop stalling," he growled. "Reverse your spell on the wolf." "Spell? Now, why on earth would I do that? He's the only thing keeping me alive right now, ain't he? You care about him." "Gideon, don't!" Thea cried, the sound of her voice making my heart tumble. "I think you have me mistaken," Gideon said, charging at her anyway. The woman raised her hand outright as her chest heaved. "Ebero Masako Nega, Neste," she cried, the enchantment leading me to believe that she was a witch. Once she spoke her spell, she pivoted to Thea, the reaction sure to affect her instead. I wondered why she decided to hurt Thea instead of Gideon. Whatever the case, I moved to protect her, but Gideon answered to her threat before I could budge, lodging his fist inside the girl, finally putting her to rest. "Aha," she whimpered, blood trickling down the corner of her lips. "Your curses don't work on me, so you turn to your sister." "Sister?" "That's low, even for you." She smiled. "Desperate times, handsome, but this wasn't what I had in mind when I told you to fist me." Gideon pulled out, her lifeless body dropping on the ground. I turned my eyes to Thea, noticing the force field around her degrading. Austin, too, had recovered, pulling himself up on his feet with his hand on his chest, its deadly fast beating settling down as soon as the witch had died. "That bitch," he growled. "We got hunters on our tail. Fucking witches are just icing on the cake, huh?" "Thea," Gideon whispered, kneeling down before my fated mate. As soon as I assured her safety, I silently made my escape. In my wounded state, there was no fight left in me.
Chapter 24. Thea. I slept for 8 hours. 8 long hours. Between being kidnapped by my sister and then having to watch her die, I was spent. It was hard having to watch Gideon kill her. She was only torn, having lived the life of torment and abuse. But I didn't want Austin dying either. It was sad that I couldn't have it both ways. And while I was torn about her death, I resented her for everything she'd done to me, and for all the things she'd said about Gladys. Rage and sorrow filled my aching heart as I sat in bed. I was back at the mansion, where Austin had made a full recovery according to the beta who'd paid me a visit 10 minutes ago. I was given lunch on a tray, but I pushed it aside. For some reason, the salami on toast with a side of fruit didn't entice me. My appetite shot from all of the bloodshed. Before I'd slept, Gideon had explained everything, from the time I left the mansion to the time that Blade found my sister. He'd told me how involved Reese was, but after the rescue, they couldn't find him or his betas. Our guess, he was either injured or worse, seeing as he didn't come over to finish the job. He left 2 fish in the water, me and Austin. Despite my mixed feelings for my fated mate, I was more disturbed by him than anything. He'd hurt Carly, and he'd sicked his dogs on me to treat me the same fate. Having him killed was another story. No matter what I told my boys or how much I tried to bury how I felt, I wasn't sure I'd go along with it, even after everything he'd done. "You're up." I turned my head and saw Gideon leaning by the door. The stealth on this guy was truly unparalleled. There was a lot that can be said about someone who could sneak up on a wolf. I greeted him with a smile to erase the worried look on his face. The seriousness on him was unmoving, even as he approached my bedside. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine, Gideon. How about you?" "You shouldn't worry about me. You came out of that struggle scuffed up as well. Nothing compared to the wounds the rest of you suffered. Care to sit and talk with me? Where is Austin?" I think he's out. You seem more accepting of him ever since the rescue. Should I take that as a good sign?" He snorted. "He did all right, better than I thought for a Highlander. Have you seen him already?" "Not since we got back, no. I'll call for him." "Wait," I said, stopping him as he went toward the exit. I could tell right then and there that he was dodging me, and I was curious to know what for. "Gideon, I can tell that you're itching to tell me something. It's important." He turned back to me, his face telling me that I was right on the money with this one. It wasn't like him to peel off in a hurry, trying to avoid me. "Please sit. You might not like what you hear, Thea. You're looking at me like you did something wrong." I crawled out of the covers and toward the foot of the bed. I took his arm and pulled him down, bringing him to the edge. "There's something I need to tell you, too." "Is it about Gladys?" My eyes went wide. "I already knew, Thea." My grip on his arm went tight. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I promised her I wouldn't." My stomach churned, chills running up my skin. I shot up on my feet, furious, my own mother trusting him over me to tell this deep secret. "Why would she tell you, someone who isn't even family?" I yelled at him. "You didn't have the right, Gideon. You should have told me. No, she should have told me. I'd been lied to all of my life." "For good reason." "And what reason is that?" "She wanted to keep you safe, Thea. Honestly, she didn't even want you knowing about your werewolf half, but that heritage couldn't be concealed forever, not after you reached your 18th birthday. She wanted to raise you human, without the knowledge of your magical talents. But a normal life was far from reach, no matter how badly she wanted it for you." "So what? I'm a witch, too? Is that what she was protecting me from? Or is there something else about it that you're not letting me know?" "I have no reason to lie to you now." Tabitha opened the veil. "Gladys was hiding her shame, wasn't she?" I blurted out in rage. "She's human and she coaxed my alpha werewolf father to court her." "It's more complicated than that." "My sister didn't give me the highlights, but I got the gist of it." Gideon went on his feet and brought his hands over my shoulders tenderly. "She asked for my opinion, and I told her it was best to tell you the truth. Ultimately, it was your mother's choice. Gladys was a dark witch, with an even darker past. She underwent reform, but her history never truly went away. The deals she'd made, the people she'd pissed off, they weren't going to let her off easy. So she escaped, and 20 years ago she met your father, Miles Warcheimer. True, Miles was married and mate-locked at the time, but Gladys didn't know. Priya was barren, and he failed to tell Gladys the truth to his title. An alpha of the Onyx Wolves to her, he was just any handsome man she met at the bar. But this one was chivalrous, funny, suave, and most importantly, madly in love with her. Miles embraced her darkness, and this affair with a human was the least of his worries. Before you ask, Gladys didn't taint the man with a love spell, even though she was well capable of doing so. She believed in genuine love, but when Gladys discovered his truth, it was already too late. She was pregnant with an alpha's baby. I narrowed my eyes on Gideon, my emotions tousled as he spoke. Gladys should have pushed him away at every turn, but she didn't. Against her better judgment, she stayed in the shadows of his life. Here and there, they'd continue to meet, the foundation of their union built off lies. To them, it didn't matter. Gladys was so forgiving, and the chemistry and bond they shared was unbreakable. What ultimately destroyed their relationship was when Priya found out. She'd sent one of her betas to spy on her fated mate. At that time, you were already born, and so was your sister. However, as far as your father knew, he only had one child. The other was taken as an offering to a warlock named Grusagi. Without her knowledge, the beast had been watching her ever since she'd escaped in silence. When it was time to collect, he made sure she couldn't run or change the deal. Her firstborn was traded for immortality. Tabitha left to think that she'd done so willingly. Thea, Gladys was heartbroken. There were no words to describe the guilt she felt. So it was true. Thereafter, everything began to fall apart for her. Priya gave Miles an ultimatum to take Gladys's baby as her own or to kill herself. Miles loved Priya, so she had Miles steal you from Gladys. She begged and wept as Priya watched him take you away from her loving arms. You were no more than a few days old at the time. Until this day, Gladys regretted not leaving Miles when she had the opportunity to. For what happened 2 years after nearly left you killed. Thankfully, she had enchanted you with a spell, one that enabled her to find her baby. Until the night of the fall of the Onyx Wolves, Gladys left you with your werewolf family. She wasn't a spiteful witch. She still loved Miles, and moreover, she loved you. And as long as you were in a caring family, she allowed the arrangement to fall through, until she was given a vision that the Onyx Wolves would be attacked by the regime. The hunters snuffed out the location of your father and were planning to take him out along with a number of betas. When Gladys went to tell Miles this, she was immediately punished. Priya was enraged that she'd shown her face, because according to her, she'd finally had a baby with Miles. You were her biological daughter. To save her from shame, Miles didn't say a word to their pack, and surprisingly enough, neither did Gladys. Even when she was being belittled, cursed out, and threatened, she kept her tongue tied about the entire affair. Up until she saw your nanny walk into the hall with you in her arms. The sight of you changed her perspective, and she yelled at the top of her lungs as she was being escorted out. You swore you'd protect our daughter, Miles Warcheimer. You swore! Priya lost it. She told Miles, if you're the man you say you are, then you'll protect this pack from this trifling witch. Funny thing, Miles never told her that Gladys was a witch. What's also interesting was how serious Gladys was in never crossing that line again. She could have easily slaughtered the entire court that night to rescue you, Thea, but she didn't. Those days of darkness, she swore they were over. So she allowed those betas to put her away under Miles's orders. While Priya demanded an immediate execution, Miles had other plans for her. I believe your father knew what he was doing. At the time of her imprisonment, her vision became a reality, and the regime raided the Onyx Wolves. Gladys heard the bloodshed from the sub-basement and escaped to rescue you. Unfortunately, Miles was beyond saving, as well as the many other wolves who died that day. The Shifter Council came to clean up the mess, and they believed they'd gotten rid of the regime. Gladys called the entire affair a double bait word came from the regime through the Shifter Council, but only Gladys could prove that through her visions. Throughout the course of a few days, they laid the rest of the Onyx Wolves to waste. And by they, I mean the regime. The Shifter Council didn't mention that to the rest of the local packs because they wanted to give them security. If there are no hunters to worry about, they could handle the Shifter population at large. At least so they thought. The Reaper Wolves took that incident and proceeded with their theory, the survival of the fittest. It's either them or the hunters. As for Gladys, she didn't care either way. She had a system to protect her child from ever experiencing a massacre like that ever again. You'll learn to hate that system, call it being caged, being imprisoned. You've been lied to and fed false stories, all for the sake of being protected. Gladys was never a family friend, and she didn't tell you this because she didn't want you tampering with your dark powers. What you didn't know wouldn't kill you. And when I saw your gentle eyes and your fragile innocence, I realized that she might have made the right decision. At 2, you were so small, so oblivious to how tainted the outside world really was. It didn't matter where you'd go, your history will follow you, which was why it was best Gladys raised you the way she did. Wait, you knew me since I was a baby? Exactly how old are you? Older than you might think. Please, Gideon, no more secrets, okay? You're shaking again, Thea. Because I'm being bombarded by the truth, it's all too much. Which is exactly why I don't want to burden you with my past. Just know that Gladys had saved me too once. I see her as a mother as well, and my best friend. This is my life now, I sobbed. I feel so out of place that I don't know what to do moving forward. You fight, he said, cupping my cheek. Nothing here has changed. Don't let the truth break your spirit. Don't let them win. I meant what I said, and I will fight alongside you, Thea, till the end. I went on this road because I owed Gladys everything. But when I finally met you and I learned how to let someone in, I understood my reason for staying in your story. Gideon! I breathed, his gaze on me melting my heart. It's not going to be easy. No one said it was going to be. He leaned over and kissed me tenderly, his lips on mine, putting my mind at ease. We take it one step at a time. I'm just glad you're safe. I smiled. Thanks for saving me, Gideon. It's my pleasure. It's what I'm here for. I appreciate the rescue too, but don't expect a fucking kiss, Austin said as he came in, my mate clearly having had eavesdropped in our conversation. Austin, Gideon called out to him, showing mild irritation on his sweet face. Would it kill you to knock? He smirked. I'm tempted to say no, but guys, this is my bedroom. I don't need permission to waltz into my own bedroom. He turned to me, his eyes finally catching mine. Just like that, his smile stretched twice as wide, Austin pacing right at me with a happy pep in his step. There she is, he chirped in a cheery tone, Austin grabbing me under my arms and picking me up. I yelped when he tossed me in the air and caught me in his arms. The bastard nearly gave me a goddamn heart attack. I glared at him in a flush as he cradled me, that devious glint in his eyes sending me lewd vibes. You had me worried there, princess. I scoffed. My Prince Charming. Don't worry. Priya was a bitch, Grisagi was a bitch, and the whole fucking council's a bitch, but we'll manage. We're the unstoppable trio, remember? I grunted. So you were eavesdropping on us? The regime is still out there, and so is Reese, Gideon said. We need to tread carefully and attack this strategically. I turned to him. So you really think Reese is still out there? Until I see a body, he's alive. The beast has a high endurance rate and is by far the strongest shifter I've dealt with. What am I, chop liver? Austin protested. You know there's truth to my statement, otherwise you wouldn't have been hiding from him for years. So how would we go about this? We needed to get rid of Reese, right? As for the guy who'd helped my sister capture me, I wasn't even sure if he was still alive or not. Granted my trauma a few hours ago, I opened my mouth to propose a dangerous plan. How about we use me to get to Reese? My boys looked at me like I had 3 heads. Seriously, we already have hunters on our plate. Having the Reaper wolves interfering will only complicate things. Babe, I don't want you anywhere near that piece of shit after what he'd done to you. Things are good now. All we need to do is plan ahead with, foolproof plans, not shitty suicidal ones. I understand, Austin, but if what you say is true, then Reese might convert to playing the patient game too. The regime is back out there. They brought his pack on lockdown. I mean, that's rare, right? Even for the Reaper wolves. So they'll be playing it safe. And you want to shake the tree? Gideon said. When they least expect it, yes, they won't see it coming. For the record, I'm against this, he said, Austin co-signing. Don't worry, we'll spend time in training. I took out 2 of his betas. I beamed. Reaper betas. It means I'm climbing up there and getting better at handling myself. So, give me the benefit of the doubt and let me do my share. You'll be hanging out on the sidelines, keeping an eye on me. Fair? Gideon looked over to Austin and Austin to Gideon. They traded unsure looks, but in the end, they tossed a little faith my way. Too bad I couldn't tell them that I had another agenda by meeting up with Reese. This marks the end of Book 1 of Twisted Mates by Jordan Harper. If you've enjoyed the book, drop a like and subscribe.